Well, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Band Talk. And you know what? I think we're going to go Eastlink TV on this week because it's a topic that I think a lot of people need to see widespread. A member of our group found this. It was a CBC News article titled "Toronto Musicians Discouraged by Discipline of Local Music Scene," and the gentleman that's with me here, Johnny Darko, was quoted in there. Johnny, welcome. How you doing?
Not too bad. How about you, brother?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. So I guess explain to me the scene. I've been hearing different things. I was actually up, I think I was up there in June. Saw Kiss the Destroyer Canada at the Rock Pile.
Okay.
Love that bar. Tell me about your scene. What's going on there?
Well, right now it's definitely taking a hit. There's a lack of scene. To know what to say. When you put up shows now, it's just not really bringing in a draw. You have to really put 5 or 6 bands on the set to get any accumulation of crowd to come to a show.
Right. And so when you guys do that, well, I guess how's it working up there? Because it's been a while. I played Toronto for years, but it's been some time. Do you guys have to rent the venue and do it that way, or how's it working up there right now?
Well, for me, when I do my promotion company stuff with Parabolic Promotions, it really depends on the venue. So some of them want a percentage cut from the show night of. Some of them want an upfront fee. Some of them want night of fee. So it really depends. There's very few that'll let you have the venue without any sort of rental fee anymore. That's kind of exclusive to venues like Duffy's or Tail of the Junction, or even out in London, you get stuff like Dundas and Sons.
Okay, so obviously, if you're promoting, and I know in your piece you were talking about Hamilton and London, and are you more or less are you going where the I guess opportunities are? Are you trying to focus on one area? How are you doing your shows?
Personally, I try to spread across Southern Ontario just to get a bit of a good variety of what's out there. Because it's kind of hard to do it exclusively in any one area right now. Like if I was doing just Toronto, the shows would be so far and few between.
Yeah.
Everything's booked up, and that shows just aren't doing that well.
So talk to me about that a little bit, because out here in Halifax, I mean, and a challenge we have, we've got a city that, quite frankly, I mean, they can say what they want, but they're not business friendly. That's and it's hard for musicians because the venues are downtown. There's no parking downtown. It's hard to you go to load your gear and you get a parking ticket. I mean, it's and people are parked in the loading zone and whatnot. So just talk about the I guess the Toronto scene right now and like how many clubs are in it, and how it works.
Well, we got a few, but they're all kind of conjunctively downtown in that same area where, like you mentioned, parking can be hard, and you really almost are relying on the foot traffic of people coming by to even come into your shows. That's I guess the benefit of being downtown. Otherwise, though, like everything, well, not everything, but a lot of the good higher end venues, the stuff that we've come to know over past X amount of years of being in the music industry at all. Um, they're shutting down or they're being monopolized by larger companies, and it's making it a lot harder to get in anywhere that isn't just a venue that's off on the edge of the city somewhere where you're not really going to find people anyways.
So when you say they're shutting down, are they shutting down because maybe a bar owner just has had enough and he's looking to unload, the venue to somebody else, or what's taking place there?
I think for a lot of them, it's the demand of the music just not hitting the genres that people want to hear anymore. So, for example, places like the Kill Room that have been in business in Hamilton for a while, that unfortunately got shut down to like permit laws and whatnot. That was more exclusively to punk and metal, so it didn't really have the foundations to back it up for them to then fund the paperwork they needed to keep it in business.
Right. Um, so and I mean, obviously, when I lived in Toronto, I mean, there was a Gasworks, there was Nags Head North, there was oh geez, what else? Well, the Bovine Sex Club's still going. Places like that. There's a couple of bands from Halifax that actually did the Bovine. I don't know, a month or two ago. But then I heard about some other club at Dundas and Adelaide, maybe. I'm trying to in that area, but might be more of like a cover band sort of thing. So for the original guys, really, I mean, would going and making a venue kind of like renting a space? Are you guys looking at that type of thing too, or?
Um, it would be interesting, but we're really running on the availability of what's accessible right now and not overbooked, because anything like the Bovine or Sneaky D's, I mean, those are so overbooked. I mean, good luck even getting a response from them.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's the other thing too. And so everybody went through that crappy time in 2020. And I don't know how it worked there, but here they open and then they should pull their back, and then they open again, they pull their back, and then there's restrictions on how many people you could have. Um, Everybody was chomping at the bit, and there was just, oh, we're in this together, and la la la. And I kept saying, I hope people don't take music for granted when it comes back, because we almost lost it, and it seems to me like that might be happening. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's a pretty fair statement. It's a really fair statement, actually. People definitely take it for granted nowadays.
And I mean, so here's the other thing too, and I do understand when you put a show on, there's got to be value. If you want people to go, they got to see bands that they like. Um, but then you get the people that are like, oh, well, that seems like an awful lot of money, and they don't factor in all the overhead costs that take place just before you even do a show. Um, Obviously, that's equated in your ticket prices when you're doing a show. Do you guys do pre-sales? Do you monitor that? Is it a lot of your stuff walk up? Like how are you, I guess, charging and setting your ticket prices?
So there's definitely pre-sales involved, which has definitely been hit recently by like Eventbrite, for example, trying to up their
Uh,
terms to where you have to now pay out percentages of your shows or whatever to them, which is bullshit in my opinion. Uh, but yeah, there usually is some sort of pre-show push, and it really is dependent on how the bands market themselves nowadays. Because even as a promoter, you don't have enough attention after COVID to really push out a show from just the promotion angle and get a full house. You rely on these bands to then push out almost every single day on all their social media platforms. It becomes almost a job for the bands as well, pre-show, just to get the pre-sales going.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's almost like we rehearsed this ahead of time, because out here, a topic of discussion has been, um, you know, back in the day, and whatever day that was the venue promoted it. So, the band just showed up and played, got their money. It was up to the venue to kind of promote the show. And, you know what, here in Halifax, there was ads and radio ads and newspaper and whatnot. It's a different kind of era, and you still get some people that think they should just show up and play and not promote. And my thing down here has been, well, great, but you might not get anybody out. And they kind of argue about that. Do you get some of that pushback from bands when you're doing your shows?
Occasionally, yes.
Yeah.
Usually from bands that are a little more well known and get more shows, they'll get a little, I want to say, persnickety about it, where they want to, just show up and play their bit, yeah, like you said, and not really have to push any marketing. They figure they're already well known enough that they shouldn't have to do that. Whereas, some of these smaller bands, they'll get out there and they'll share it on their news feeds, their stories on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or whatever. And even if they only bring 5 or 10 people, because not that many people know who that band is, I see that effort, and I almost, inherently, I want to pay those smaller bands more than I'm paying these bigger bands.
That's fair. We're going to take our first break here, Johnny, and pay some bills. But I want to expand on that a little bit more, because my personal belief is that somebody expects somebody else to do something, and maybe that's where sometimes things fall through the cracks. So we'll be back in Eastlink TV after this. Welcome to Rimshots with Sean, right here in Eastlink TV, and I hope you enjoyed the hockey game before our show. We get the primo spot because hockey is such a draw, obviously, in the country. But here with my new friend Johnny Darko, who is doing a lot of promotion in Toronto. One of the things that somebody said to me when I told them I was going to do this piece: "Oh, come on, you're in a city of 4 million people, and you can't draw." But scale, genre, people that are going to come out. It doesn't matter how big your population is. It's the same sort of thing no matter where you are.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, even on the recent shows, I booked for Two Shadows. They had a show in Medicine Hat that had a better poll than the show they had in Toronto, and that was just off of people that were interested in going.
So that's interesting. So I know a couple people in the States that always talk about location not necessarily being, a thing. And I do a lot of stuff actually in the United States, right out of Halifax, because of technology and stuff now. But you're promoting in other areas. Are you finding some of your shows in some of those areas and smaller areas are maybe doing better than in Toronto?
it really depends on how well the band's advertised, to be honest. It
Yep.
doesn't really matter where it is. I do find overall London has less access to the music scene. So when metal shows go down in London, they seem to do a little better. But then there's areas like St. Catharines where they also love their metal, but the venues willing to work with metal are so few that you can't really set anything up there.
Um, so I mean, I remember years ago in Niagara Falls there was Sam's, which was a huge, basically it was a big wide open space. But I mean, you play there on a Saturday night, and you might get 1,000 people in there, which was amazing. Um, how many venues are we talking all around that you're able to have access to and try to get shows into?
Um, that's a really hard question. I don't really keep track. It's mostly just in the need, like in the moment, whatever city's needed, I will contact every venue. I usually have friends that have contacts in venues, so it's just kind of like whatever is most accessible at the time. But there's definitely like I want to say there's only really one or two in St. Catharines that are worth even trying to work with, and
Okay.
one of them is my house, which is hard to book. You got Hamilton. There's two or three out there. Toronto, there's a good five or six across that are responsive, but as far as how often you can actually book a show with them, you got basically two that you can get really fairly regularly.
All right, so we'll give those a shout out right now because if they're playing ball, they would be who?
Dundas and Sons is pretty easy to get. They're great to work with, and Tail of the Junction has been an amazing venue. They are always willing to work with you very easily. They got a sound guy that sets everything up really well. It's a very go with the flow place, and they don't give you too much shit.
Well, that's good. And I mean, again, like people don't. They, okay, talk for my audience, and I have a lot of people that would know, but for people that don't, that are going, oh my, why am I paying this much for a ticket? What goes into your show from the time you decide you're going to start it till the time the lights are on and the music is played? Just a brief little snapshot.
All right, fair. Let's say I'm going with the place the rock pile. So there's a $500 overhead that I'm gonna have to give them night of, no matter what. I'm gonna have to then get out and get in contact with these different bands to get them on the set. A lot of them are gonna want a guarantee, which is anywhere from like 125 to maybe even $300 for some of these bands to play. Then I've got to set up the ticket sales, make up the advertisements, the event pages, push all that out there, continuously push the advertisement day of, and then obviously the night of, I got to pay the venue, I got to pay out the bands. It's it is a lot of work. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just as simple as okay, well I know some people and I know a venue, so I'm going to put them together and set up a show.
And so if you and I wouldn't expect you to divulge what you're paying because that's nobody's business really, but if you give the band a guarantee, is it a guarantee plus something else or the guarantee is what they get or does it differ from show to show?
Well, I mean, if the show doesn't do well, then they're going to get their guarantee, and that sucks because sometimes if it doesn't do well, you have to go out of pocket. It doesn't happen too often that you have to go to pocket though.
Yeah.
But if the show does really well, as long as the other bands are getting paid then as well, so if there's bands that are on set that don't have a guarantee, as long as they're making relatively close to whatever that guarantee was, I will add on to the guarantee for the other bands. For me, it's all about the community and keeping the connections good and really keeping the scene alive. The money isn't really what I'm in it for, and there isn't really a lot of money in the metal scene nowadays, anyways.
Yeah, it's funny because we had Anvil out here. They played a local bar that I play on a regular basis, and they did well. I thought they probably would have done better, but I mean it's just kind of the way that it is. And I have a couple of friends that promote metal shows down here. They tend to be doing them now in the smaller venues like brewery markets and things like that, just because they can get more people in, less overhead. Obviously, it looks like a great room when there's people packed in tight. Is that an option for you, or it's just you got to kind of run with whatever venues are there?
I mean, it is somewhat of an option. Yeah, especially lately, I've been looking into non-conventional venues. I haven't really set anything up with them yet, but for example, there's even one place that's an arcade that does have enough space for bands to play. And the whole gimmick of this place is once you pay to get in, all the games are free. So stuff like that could help bring to the draw in general, and like you said, reduce the overhead.
Very cool. So this story, when it came up, and there's a couple other people that were quoted in there, but they were all kind of, I guess, saying the same thing. How did the story, I guess, grow legs? Did you guys reach out to somebody and just say, "Look, we need some exposure here," or how did it happen? Because it was very interesting in that I see a lot of similar parallels between Halifax and Toronto.
I can only speak from my personal angle of it, and for me, that was when the Opera House got monopolized by Live Nation. I had a lot to say about that. I put some of that online, and I guess it got wind from the right people, and I got contacted by first CBC and then Global, seeing that contacted me. So that's kind of where my angle of getting into it came from. But I mean, a lot of people do share the same opinion because we're all being affected the same way, right?
So, I mean, again, it's like you and I rehearse this because we just had a concert here on Friday night, and the big venue here, which is the hockey rink, it seats about 11,000 people. About 4 or 5 months ago, flipped from what's called Ticket Atlantic to Ticketmaster. So probably early last week and the week before, if you don't have the Ticketmaster app, the tickets that you paid money for are not going to be any good, and you're not going to be able to get in the venue. And there was panic, and basically all they had to do was download the app and scan something, and it was fine. But it turned into this big thing, like people were going to get ripped off. Is some of that going on with the Live Nation up there? Like, how did they kind of, I guess, swoop in and do their thing?
So I don't think there's any ticket changeover, so much as when Live Nation officially takes hold, the original Opera House hosts events are now done, kind of thing. So it's kind of like a changeover like that. But there is definitely going to be a big hit with that, and the ticket raise prices, the events that can be held there, the bands that can even book the venue, the availability. It's going to be absolutely outrageous.
Um, Phoenix, is that Wellesley and Wellesley?
Phoenix Underground?
Yeah, like, we're not talking the big Phoenix Club, right?
No, I'm talking about the Opera House.
Oh, sorry. Okay, and the Opera House is where again?
Um, oh geez, I'm bad with intersections.
That's all right. Think about it. We're going to pay some bills and come back after this. How's about that on Eastlink TV? Well, welcome back to Rimshots with Sean here on Eastlink TV, and we're also obviously online all the time. I'm here with Johnny from what's the name of your company?
Parabolic Promotions. I'm also the vocalist of Don Valley.
Okay, right on. So, and do you live in that area?
Currently, I'm in Scarborough myself,
Oh,
but
nice.
I move all over a lot, so I've been down there.
I was at Greenwood and Danforth for 6 years, man. So I'm familiar with the area. Great spot. Um, so I don't know. Are you guys in the situation where you're putting these shows on? Because merch is obviously a big way for bands to make extra money. And are you running into venues that want to cut of the merch as well?
Yes, there is a few venues that want merch cuts, and I usually don't go with that myself. Like if I'm setting up a show and a venue wants merch cuts, I will flat out tell them it's either not going to happen at that venue now, or we're going to have to work around that in another way because I refuse to touch a band's merch profits. That's just unacceptable.
And I mean, really, it's nobody's making money off live music or sorry, recorded music. I mean, you pennies on the millions of dollars for streaming and whatnot. So it's shows playing live and selling merch and maybe selling some of your CDs or tapes or whatever. Or now we're back to vinyl. Are these clubs accommodating, or do they want to push back and try to get the long arm in the short pocket?
Some of them are accommodating. It really depends. It's so widespreadly different, like between the venues that are available right now. Like every single one of them has a unique way of working that it's almost. That's probably the most frustrating thing with booking these venues is how different every single one of them works and how you have to keep track of each one of these processes.
I mean, I think about when I was up there in June and the old gasworks. I mean, it's sitting there empty. I mean, I remember when I was up there, it closed and it turned into a bakery or something. And I don't know what it was after that, but I was up there and the building's still there. I don't know what's inside it, but that would be a great venue if it was available. I mean, right on Young Street. Um, you hearing any rumblings about any new clubs or anything opening up that might be coming online?
Nothing that's really caught my attention, to be honest. Anything that I've heard of new is right now is it's all club scene stuff, like top 40s, like rave music, whatever. But it's not like the good old days where you get stuff like the Reverb. That was a solid venue.
Um, what's a city like itself to do business in? Like here in Halifax, one of the I mentioned before we're over regulated here. We're over regulated. We're red taped to death. You have people that are, I guess, giving their decisions on things, and they don't understand what they're regulating or trying to regulate. It can be very very hard. And then our geography is not great. What's it like to do business in the city of Toronto, just in general?
Um, in general, I mean, it definitely has its ups and downs. There's a lot more accessibility and connection to things. But at the same time, there's that capitalism factor where everything is so jammed in there that everybody's doing almost a competitive capitalism price thing where, well, if they can charge more, we can too.
And do you find out like the metal scene in Toronto now? I mean, when I was living up there, it was funny. All the scenes were very different. Nobody really touched one another. And what's that metal scene like up there now?
Oh, it's definitely more blended. You'll get everything from almost like a pop rock on the same set as like deathcore or like black metal. It's all very blended. I mean, you try to stylize it into what's going to draw a similar crowd that'll like the same music, but at the same time, it's what bands are willing to get out there and work still without, having a ridiculous overhead guarantee that's almost unrealistic.
Do you when you do shows, do you bring in you mentioned bigger bands, so like what I guess level of bands would you bring in on a bill that um you would try to have to push a show?
Really, I'll work with almost anybody, really. But as far as larger bands, like I've worked with bands like EMR and Human Rampage, Two Shadows. I have something coming up with In the Act of Violence. But it's also a lot of smaller local bands like bands like Bluff, for example. Not a lot of people know about Bluff. They're really solid dudes. Great music, great guys. Can put on a show. They know what they're doing.
And I guess the scene. So I keep relating to when I was up there, and I was up there from '93 to 2000. But I used to joke around that the guy that was cleaning the club would tell you if you sucked. I mean, everybody kind of had that attitude in Toronto, right? And to play a bar, you did have to be good at what you were doing, or you would get laughed off the stage. Is the scene still like that?
I mean, within reason. If you were absolutely horrible, then yeah, like people will tell you suck.
Yeah.
Usually, it's not the other bands on the set. You usually try to support people no matter what. But there are some people that can be pretty brutal still. But it's honesty, really. It's less "boo, you suck" and more like, okay, well, these guys aren't that great, so let's keep seeing them, like, play themselves into shape, kind of deal.
Um, and part of the reason why I want to do this show, or this the version of the show, is because the article intrigued me a lot. Because I'm sitting there going, "Wow, we thought we were special in Halifax about how difficult it is to do things, and you guys are going through some of the same things." However, the one thing that you guys do have there that we don't really have, there's probably two, maybe three venues that are dedicated to, okay, I'll say original music. Everything else is singles and duos, and like it's this weird, gitchy, almost touristy type thing. Are you guys running into any of that that's making it maybe a little bit hard to do shows?
Like hitchy venues.
Yeah.
Um, Not so much in my experience. Like that's once again due to me avoiding things like that on purpose. But there has been a couple that we've played that are a little uncomfortable with the way they work, to say the least. But at the same time, you just kind of got to go with whatever to get that show right.
So if I was to give you the opportunity to do your elevator pitch, you get your audience that you're trying to sell to, and they're the group of people who are like, oh, well, it's too expensive to go to shows and this and that and the other thing, and you had 30 seconds to pitch them on what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. What would it be?
Mostly the sense of community and love for the music. If you want the music to survive, you got to be a part of that community, and that strives from everybody that the people who own the bars, people that work the bars, the people who come to the shows to see the shows, people who talk about the shows, share it on Facebook, setting it up, the bands, just anybody involved in it. However, holding that sense of community is what's going to keep it alive.
Well, it's good you're saying that, because I mean, like I said in the first segment, if there was a sense of community, maybe desperate because everything was shut down, and I just remember, oh, we're in it together, and then down here, as soon as things opened up and people got comfortable, they all kind of did their own thing, and it's caused a little bit of issues. Last question for you, my man. How do my viewers find out about what you're doing if they're going to go to Toronto? How do they look you up, hook you up?
Parabolic Promotions, you can find it on Facebook, Instagram. My personal page, Johnny Darko, will have a lot more information usually because it's a lot to keep up with. Otherwise, Don Valley.
And I found you pretty quickly, so that social media does work. Johnny Darko, thank you so much. You've been watching Eastlink TV, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next week.